Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a super cool knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the SOG Seal XR. Oh my gosh, this thing is a tank. Let me say this right off the bat. I've handled a lot of knives. If you're new to my channel, I have handled a lot of knives. Up until very recently, my opinion of SOG was they make specifically tactical stuff that's not really not really stuff I'm interested in, right? They had not really been putting things together in a way that was interesting to me. They had not been using materials that were interesting to me, right? And the designs just seemed totally ridiculous, not really utilitarian. Here lately, with the introduction of the XR lock, which wasn't super recently, right? They actually have been doing some really impressive things. And this is one of those impressive things, so I'm excited to talk about it today. This was sent to me by Jimmy Slash. You guys probably are familiar with him. If you're not, go over to his YouTube channel and subscribe. Awesome guy. Thanks so much for sending this in for review. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This knife is absolutely available, or at least I just checked, right? You guys are watching this in my future. By the time you guys see it, it'll have been recorded weeks ago, but yeah, it should still be available. So I will link it right down below and you guys can check it out if you want to. SOG Seal XR coming in at 9 inches if you count this, you know, hammer slash glass breaker thing. But really, as far as like, you know, the knife, like the actual knife, it's about 8.8 inches overall with a 3.85 inch blade and about 3.5 inches on the cutting edge. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and Ontario Rat Model 2. So yeah, as you can see there, this is a big knife, not a small knife. How about up against the PM2 and the Para 3 from Spyderco? Whoops. Yeah, again, same thing, big knife. And last but not least, the Benchmade Reptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and its little brother, the Mini Reptilian. So yeah, there you go. Big knife. I think we've got that established. Let's go ahead and do carry profile, because this is not a thin knife, not at all. Thickness of the SOG Seal XR. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this thing is a freaking tank. Oh my gosh, it's thick, right? It's cool though, in a novelty sense. And like, we'll go over this in a little bit, but I'll tell you right now, this thing is absolutely purpose-built. It is absolutely ready to go. Not that thickness has anything to do with how durable something is, but it does give you that confidence in hand, right? It's just not gonna be confidence in the pocket all the time for every person. How about length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3? You can see here that this knife is definitely tall. It has a very prominent and very aggressive flipper tab. Maximum height is absolutely above the PM2 and Para 3, which are already tall. So yeah, thickness, check. Big knife, check. Tall knife, check. What are we looking at for materials? Unfortunately, this is injection mold plastic, but it is backed up by, if I get my flashlight out, you can absolutely get my flashlight down in the description. It is backed up by countersunk steel liners, which are, can we see in there? They're milled out. That's impressive. That's not something that I always expect SOG to do. So they did manage to reduce the weight a little bit. Blade material, we're looking at CPM S35VN, which is not traditionally what SOG uses. So that's great. I'm actually really happy to see them doing that. There's a bunch of things about this knife that actually make me really happy for SOG. Blade stock thickness, I'm gonna guess that's 1/5 of an inch. Yeah. That's the same thickness as like an XM24 or a Medford 187, 185 thousandths. That is a thick boy, for sure. Weight, let me take a guess here. I'm gonna guess this thing weighs about 7.5 ounces. 8.22 ounces. It absolutely weighs more than an XM24. Believe it or not, this knife, at least according to Blade HQ, god dang, is made in the United States. I was kind of shocked to see that. I thought for sure it would say Taiwan, but it is made in the United States. I think that's pretty cool. If that's, if that is the case, then applause to SOG. I think that's fantastic. And, for those of you who also care about, if you live in the United States and you care about home country manufacturing, then I would hope that you would applaud them as well. It's very cool. All right. So we've weighed it. So, we need to do the hardware check. You can absolutely get my tools right down in the description, in the section that talks about the tools and gear that I use on the channel. I'm gonna guess, let's take a look. I'm gonna guess that pivot's a T8. So there we go, T8. And I guessed right. Now, all these other screws, unfortunately, look to be T6. It's a bummer. I wish that they would go T8 across the board. And then we have this crazy thing, right? You need hex for both sides. That's what holds the pocket clip in, but all right, so combination of the XR lock, which as far as I understand is an Omega spring lock. It's probably not gonna be the easiest thing in the entire world to take apart, but it's possible. So if you're new to stuff like this, I don't know if I'd mess with it, but you can, so I can't give it the best marks in the world for ease of disassembly, but there you go. Okay, so what we have here is this XR lock. Look how smooth this is. That is wild, man. And it feels, the action is very snappy, but the detent is ridiculously heavy. Very, can you do the reverse flick? I want to really bad, but I can't tell you guys that I can do it. You can do the thumb flick, right? You can kind of pinch it out. For whatever reason, I'm just not strong enough to do the reverse flick. Now, your mileage might vary a little bit, right? But that detent is heavy, or what is acting as the detent. On top of that, while it is snappy, once you finally get it, right, and it's nice and smooth, incredibly smooth, let me tell you guys, the biggest issue here, and you've probably already seen it, is that almost every inch of this knife is covered in aggressive jimping. Look at this. These are teeth. Look at this side. Why? Listen. This knife has plenty of real estate. So imagine with me for a second. There's two issues here. I don't mind the texturing here. This is okay, right? Imagine with me that, let's leave the spine jimping, all right? Get rid of all of this, all of it. Backspacer, not that bad, but we don't need anything in here. You definitely don't need it in here. What we also don't need are very specific spots for individual fingers. I don't like that. Let me put my hands where I want, right? You can give one area right here and then make this kind of straight. There's enough there with this knife. Combination of the contoured scales, they are contoured, the texturing here, and just the massive amount of real estate, you're not gonna drop this knife. I don't know what they were worried about. They made sure that you're not gonna drop this knife. But this is so, I know people are like, well, for tactical scenarios, you really, okay, no, stop, no. This is too much jimping, plain and simple, right? It's crazy and aggressive and over the top, and it does match the over the top theme of the knife, but there's way too much jimping. It doesn't make any sense. Now, I can't tell you that this is a comfortable knife to squeeze because of the jimping, but it definitely does give you that, wow, I definitely feel confident, and it definitely feels like it's ready to be used. But if you're gonna use this, I don't care how tough you are or how calloused your hands are, you need gloves, period. People are like, but actually, no, you need gloves because they had to put jimping on this. So you have to wear gloves. 10 minutes, I don't care how tough you are, 10 minutes with this thing in your bare hands, you're gonna continuously cut, it's gonna ruin your hands. Oh man, it is what it is. It's one of those things, it is what it is. The jimping on the flipper tab is far and away the most offensive. The flipper tab, first off, you're working with a super duper heavy detent. On top of that, the flipper tab is aggressively jimped. So once you finally do break it, pressure into your finger, and then unless you figure out how to light switch it just perfectly to get your finger past, see, because of the amount of pressure you want to put on this to light switch, it makes you want to slip off the end, which hurts. So you get it correct. Best case scenario, you miss all this. Most of the time I find that I still get clipped. You want to push button this? That's recipe for disaster. There's my finger just from doing this video, like just now. Too much. We don't need this. We don't need that much jimping. The detent, honestly, a little bit too heavy, at least on this guy. This area absolutely does not need to be jimped. We also don't need individual finger grooves, right? I mean, it's big enough and it's contoured and there's enough texturing here. I'm good. Bare hands or not, right? I do like the texturing up here inside of that hole for people who are actually strong enough to get it with their, you know, middle finger. But I mean, wheeling it out isn't too bad. It's heavy though. Like, let me emphasize, it's heavy. You want to flick it out, you're gonna have to. But when I unboxed this, I thought something was wrong with it, or I thought that there was something to the lock that I wasn't understanding. The XR lock, as you could guess, it works very similarly to like the lock on a Benchmade, or this is actually the Hogue, so it's the Able lock, but it's the same type of deal. Omega springs, pull those back, it slides into place behind the tang. Same type of thing here. Pull it back, right, and then it slides into place as you lock the blade out. Very strong. Very, very, very strong. Yeah, Omega springs can snap. I believe this is Omega springs. I think that all of these sort of ambidextrous Axis style locks need to be outfitted, or something needs to be made where it is using a coil spring instead of Omega springs, so that we just don't have to deal with the... Truthfully, I say this every time I talk about locks like this, I've never had an Omega spring fail. Never. Not once. Ever. Some people do, though, right? To remedy this, I think there needs to be something, whether it's a cage system back here, kind of like how the Manix 2 does it, right? Or something similar to how they do, like the Shark Lock cages the coil spring in there, and they do kind of a secondary backspacer up here. I think that's probably a good way to fix stuff like that. But the XR lock is what it is. It'll probably be plain and reliable, and it will certainly be very strong. That action coming back down is amazing. I never thought that I would have a SOG that would do that, right? Nothing against SOG, it's just like this is very, to me this is so non-typical, right? So anyways, we have a super duper thick, aggressive clip point blade with a flat that carries out about 75% the length. This is the most robust clip point I think I've ever seen. Generally speaking, clip points are not the most robust, but because we're dealing with such a thick blade stock, there's so much material out here, and this flat carries out so far. Yeah, I think you're probably going to be fine. S35VN is amongst some of the tougher stainless steels. So yeah, the blade is ready to go. I mean, obviously, like, do you want to put the blade in or the knife in a vise and beat on the blade with a sledgehammer? Well, no. What are you trying to accomplish, right? But for knife stuff, and probably plenty beyond, you're probably going to be okay. I mean, the knife's not going to fail, right? If you try to use the blade as a screwdriver, you're going to mess the blade up, right? But the knife itself and the lock is probably not going to fail. It's very, very robust. As you can imagine, it does not get thin behind the edge. Will it slice? I mean, yeah, it'll slice. It's just, this isn't a super clean feeling slice, right? I always did. If you ever watch other YouTube channels, right? And I'm not going to name any names, but, and these are, generally the ones I'm talking about are some of the lesser known ones from a long time ago. So it's nobody that I think is still doing it. But I've seen this. They're like, the blade is so thick, it can't even cut. Watch. Well, of course, because you're coming at it like an idiot. Use it like a knife. It'll still slice. Like, I think people they get mad at like geometry that's thick, and so to oversell that, they come at it like just a goof, right? Guys, these blades will still slice, but you have to come at the material like you. It's a knife, right? It's not a hammer. So yeah, it will. But is it clean? Is it like an open L? No. It's gonna feel more like you're tearing into material. It's just more of a multi-purpose a knife that is capable of doing a lot of things that might involve a blade, and then movements that are kind of somewhat complementary to a blade, and then other times not, right? It's like if you're gonna kind of pry cut, or you're going to, something like that, maybe you're gonna need more of a folding chopper sometimes, right? That's the reason for the excess thickness in the geometry that makes it not the most excellent slicer. But will it cut? Yeah, it will. This is the least offensive aesthetic I think I've seen on a SOG. Most of the time, every SOG I've ever seen looks like it's screaming at me. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you're scrolling through, right? You're gonna, oh, you know, you got your case knives, and oh, there's a new Spyderco. Oh, interesting. SOG, right? It's just so loud and tactical, right? It's just so aggressive, and most of the time, SOGs have these crazy lines where you're like, why did they do that, right? Is it made for a hand, or is it made for a robot arm, right? No, this actually, I think, was very well thought out outside of the jimping, and these lines right here, like where they were like, you have to put your fingers right here. But no, like this area right here, this is nice, and they've scalloped this out. The contouring is great, and honestly, fit and finish on this guy, seating of everything, it's really good. Really good. Nothing feels, you know, nothing feels like they were skipping corners. I mean, the coating on the blade looks good. The release of the lock feels good. It's incredibly solid. Hardware's not flapping all over the place or rattling or anything like that. I like the texturing here. I mean, this is aggressive texturing, but that's all the more they needed to go along with the theme of this. It looks good. There's a little bit of excess here, a little bit of unnecessary, but not that much more than what we see commonly in this realm anyway, so all right. This thing back here will definitely break glass. It'll probably do a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, if you wanted to, you probably could use this to hammer the blade into something. Why? I don't know. I've never really needed to do that with a knife unless you're trying to get it in between two nailed together pieces of wood and you don't have an actual pry bar, so you need to get it in there somehow, then there you go. I don't know. I don't work for SOG. I don't know what that is, right? This choice for the you know, see-through hex thing with the pocket clip, it'll definitely hold the pocket clip on there, but it's just going to be a pain in the butt to get it out of there. So, all right, not going to lose the clip, therefore much less likely to lose the knife. But it's kind of crazy, right? It's kind of like absolutely ridiculous. But okay, the pocket clip I think is one of the worst things I've ever seen. And it's not so much the design of the clip, it's the fact that it is yelling SOG at you. We don't need that right there. Put it somewhere else, right? Didn't they put it on the, yeah, they put it on the blade already. I know what this is because it's right here. Reminder, SOG! Also, SOG, did you know? Just making sure you remembered. Yeah, I got it. It's too much. Take that off of the clip. Then the clip itself, it's one of those that's like really long and, I mean, it does go with a knife. It's wide. And then they have this aggressive dip, this spoon thing, and then a flat bill. This should be a down and up curvature. I think it's even more important because you have, it is contoured, but you have aggressive texturing right here. It's most likely going to be carried in heavy duty work pants, which means thick pocket seams. So now you get this little teeny tiny area to fight that seam, and you have the alligator teeth underneath there. Down and up, like this. Right? Then it rises to meet the seam. You push it against, right? So yeah, once it's in your pocket, not likely it's gonna come out, right? So if you're bungee jumping, honestly, I wouldn't carry a pocket knife if you're bungee jump. But if you were, I would bet the SOG would probably survive. It would probably still be in your pocket. I don't think it's going anywhere. So yeah, the carry depth, there's quite a bit of meat sticking up out of your pocket, but there's a lot of knife in your pocket too. So this is approaching shallow carry. A lot of people are gonna say that's absolutely shallow carry. Yeah, right on the line between medium and shallow carry. So I'm not a huge fan of that. And this side is much the same as the front. The knife is centered. Can we see right there? Yeah, nice centering. No unnecessary lash outside of what you can expect from, you know, other Axis style locks, because they move a little bit at the base. They just do, because it's not it's more like a, you know, an Event Horizon sort of friction style situation there. But anyways, no blade play up, down, left, or right. We have a nice large stop pin. Can you see it right there? Yeah. No way that that's gonna move. So yeah, this is pretty impressive. So let me say this right off the bat. This thing is absolutely as tough as it looks, and perhaps a step beyond that. It's definitely a tough knife. I really wish that they had gone with G10, just one step further and go with G10 on this. Because the injection mold plastic thing, while it's plenty tough and it saves a little bit of weight, we're already over 8 ounces, right? G10 instead of this is going to increase the weight by a 1/4 ounce at the most. And it's going to make the knife look and feel a lot more premium. The only thing that still feels kind of soggy about this knife is the injection mold plastic. And at this price, I don't want to see injection mold plastic. Will it work? Is it tough enough? Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is tough enough, right? But it's like just one step further, SOG, one step further. This is really impressive to me. I love the blade. I love that they're using S35VN. Hate the pocket clip. It works. Hate how it looks. This sucks because you need more of a rise in the bill. This is ridiculously unnecessary. It's way too much jimping. Way too much jimping. This area should be flat right in here. I don't want to be forced. I want to be able to move around and not go, oh, I have to deal with not only the insane jimping, but these peaks right here. What if I want to move my hands around, right? Because this is a tool. Detent's too heavy, and it's that, you know, it's worsened by the fact that there's jimping on the flipper tab. The flipper tab jimping needs to go completely. It sounds like I'm tearing this thing apart, but you have to understand, I'm just really impressed that SOG made this and that it actually is really well made. There's some design features that I don't like, but I mean, the knife itself is really well made. S35VN, right? Oh, that's awesome. The XR look, yeah, I trust it. Fit and finish is crazy good. The action is so smooth once you get around that heavy detent. It's very smooth. This is cool. How much is it? 185, 186 bucks, US made. Obviously, this knife is not for everybody. Mainly because it is gigantic and heavy and thick and ridiculously tactical, right? Over the top. But gosh, if you were gonna spend 185 bucks on a SOG, yeah, this is the one, right? Fans of mega overbuilt knives, I think will love this. I mean, like, it's the same, I could say the same kind of stuff about my XM24. I can pick this apart all day, but I own 2 XM24s that are pretty similar. I mean, like, we're gonna talk about, like, ballpark of unnecessariness. Well, yeah. The XM24 is arguably just as unnecessary. It's not quite the same level of jimping, but it definitely has the issue with the awkward flipper tab and the terrible landing zone, right? It's thick and aggressive and insane. Also made in the United States and way more expensive, but I get why people like this stuff. I'm one of those people. But I can also understand why most people are not gonna find these types of items convenient. Does this knife make a good EDC for the average person? Absolutely not. Did SOG do a good job on it? Yes, they did a great job on it. I'm actually really, the price for what you're getting, I think is fine. It's just some of the design features that I would change, right? But that's not like, it's not like the better the design features are, the more money they should charge. No, it's just some things that I think that they should change. If you are a fan of big, aggressive, like just sort of angry knives that kind of, even when they're sitting still, it just kind of feels like they're screaming at you, this is great and you'll love it. But your hands will hurt after a while, just from picking it up. Your hands are gonna hurt, right? It's cool. Legitimately, my favorite SOG. This is my favorite SOG of all time. I think that this is fun and just crazy, and it's actually capable, right? You're gonna have to get around some of this stuff, but it's definitely capable. It's making me, I don't know if you can tell, I'm smiling. I smiled the whole time during this review. I kind of hope SOG watches this, and I really hope that they hear that. I legitimately smiled through this whole review. There's a lot of stuff that's just totally insane and makes no sense about this knife, but I did smile. What are we at, 24 minutes now? I smiled for 24 minutes. This is cool. So, not gonna be going on any major playlists, but I think you know, right? If you've made it to this point, you know for certain whether or not this knife is for you. So I will link it down in the description. Thanks again to Jimmy Slash for sending this in for review. Make sure that you go and subscribe to Jimmy Slash. Make sure you follow me on Instagram as well. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.